All right, welcome to MMA Al Dente. I'm your host, Billy. Today I'm going to be talking to you about UFC on ESPN 31, which took place last night, December 3rd, 2021. It was also known as Font vs. Aldo, which many people will refer to from now on as Aldo vs. Font, because it was Jose Aldo's show. He proved he should be like the A side, like I was saying. It's Aldo versus Font. He is an elite fighter. He's an elite fighter, Jose Aldo, and he still got it. He was in a very hard fight, but a fight that will largely be remembered as him dominating. He had a rough first round, I want to say, but not too rough. I mean, I'm going to talk about Leonardo Santos versus Clay Guida in a few minutes, but Aldo rocked Font at the end of the first round and then kind of took over the fight. And what was really cool to see was Jose Aldo looking like a great grappler. Not that he was, mounting and killing, but he had too much grappling pressure for Rob Font, and that was the story of the fight, largely. Now, Jose Aldo, he's an elite fighter. He can fight for pretty much any belt, and I wouldn't care. He can fight Piotr Yan. He can move up and fight Volkanovski again. I wouldn't care. He's gone tooth and nail with both of those guys. And Volkanovski, I want to say, was largely ahead of him. But Jose Aldo can beat anybody on the planet that steps in the cage with him. He can beat Conor McGregor, even though Conor was the bigger guy. The guy doesn't belong at featherweight, really. But still, hey, he made it, so he made it. He's a featherweight. Or he was. But Rob Font still showed a lot of toughness. I think a lot of fighters, when they're fighting, they're leveling up. Their first big 5-round fight in the UFC, anyway. They tend to have a strong first round and then fade after that. And I don't want to say that's what happened here, but he had a strong first round up until he was hurt. Lost the first round because he was hurt badly, and just never really regained control of the fight. Like I said, Jose Aldo, I don't think Jose took him down once. I don't remember all the takedowns, but Jose Aldo's top pressure really, was too much for Rob Font, especially a hurt Rob Font, who himself I'm sure was fading because of cardiovascular issues alone, let alone the damage he sustained. But nevertheless, Rob Font had a great showing. He showed he could be the nail. He could be the nail, like not like he was against Rafael Assunção. This was him getting smashed by a hammer, and he took it, and he was a game fighter the whole way through. So, good showing. I think he showed Jose Aldo showed Rob Font doesn't belong near the title, but he's still 2 fights away. With the right matchmaking, if he doesn't have a significant step down in his next fight, then he's 2 fights away. He could be a title contender. So, it's not over for Rob Font. And those things like showing he's not elite, it's not like he's not elite. Just Jose Aldo was too much for him. He still hung in there, went 5 rounds with him, took his ass kicking, and I want to say he had a good showing, despite, getting his ass kicked. But he's gonna need to do some work, and he's gonna need to get some wins. I had it in my head, this guy wins this fight. And by the way, I think he was slightly favored, if not dead even, with Jose Aldo. So he had a lot of respect going into this fight. And a lot of that, I think, might have been due to Jose Aldo being just a guy that everybody expects to fall, sooner or later. Not that he hasn't fallen already, but, he's only lost to elite fighters. Max Holloway, Piotr Yan, Volkanovski. He's won the majority. He's won a good amount of rounds against both those guys, despite all those guys, despite being finished. He won his rounds against Yan and Holloway. So he's it's not like Jose Aldo got his ass kicked by those guys. even though in the end that's how it might be remembered. But he belongs in there with anybody. And it was really cool to see his grappling kind of, win the fight for him or win a good portion of it. All right, next up, Fiziev versus Riddell, Brad Riddell. That was a really good fight. These guys were friends. The whole thing was established. They're friends, and tonight they're rivals for 15 minutes. All the cliches and whatever, but it delivered. It really did deliver as a fight, with or without a storyline, and the finish was very memorable. That's a highlight reel knockout. Although he didn't go down and whatever, it knocked him out of the fight. I think he was waving it off. I don't want to speak for him, but I think he was waving the fight off. He could have been waving the ref off, but he didn't belong in that cage after that kick landed. That's not a guy that should be fighting Rafael Fiziev, even for the next 5 seconds. So that was a great stoppage. And I think the win will get better with age, but it's still a really highly regarded win as of now. I just expect big things from both of these guys. And Fiziev, I thought had a bit of a redeeming performance here. After losing round 3 to Bobby Green, it kind of put a stain on the victory, even though we're already far enough removed from that when people just see the victory, which he did win. He won 2 rounds to 1 against Bobby Green. No one's denying that. He got the better of him. But this was a big win. Getting a 3rd round knockout, especially like that, and that's something where he was making reads and, still in shape. It says a lot of great things about him as a fighter. And that was a, costly attack. Just a taxing attack on his, you don't want to be throwing spinning kicks and whatever, and a tired fighter wouldn't be throwing spinning kicks like that, and certainly they wouldn't be that accurate. So my estimation of Fiziev went way up there, and I picked Riddell to win by decision. So, he defied my expectations too. Great fucking fight. That really was tooth and nail war. I wasn't sure who was winning. I kind of have Fiziev winning, but there was some doubt with round 1 and whatever anyway. So it could have been an even fight. But no judges needed, Great fucking fight. Riddell, where he goes from here, obviously, he's going to be taking a step down, whereas Rafael will be taking a step up. But, I think Riddell's still got a great UFC record. I don't even know what it is, 5-1 now, whatever. And it might be the same as Fiziev now. He might be 5-1, I think. But he's surging after that one loss to Mustafayev, which was, I think it was like a tighter, I don't know, maybe not as tight of a kick. But I'm not sure with the wheel kick and the spinning back kick. I can't throw either, so I'm not going to sit here pretend to be an expert on it. But I thought it was cool that he was knocked out with a spinning kick, or, put down and finished, essentially. And then he got his biggest victory with a nice spinning wheel kick there, or back kick, whatever the fuck, I don't know. But anyway, great win, like I said, great fight. Kind of, I feel like the stoppage makes it a better fight. I would have said that's my fight of the night, but that didn't get fight of the night. Got performance bonus for Rafael, but fight of the night went to Cheyenne Vlismas, I don't know, Bays, versus Mallory Martin, who's a really good fighter, despite her record. But, and it's Vlismas. I think she divorced Bays. But I'm just saying, I'm not comfortable enough saying Vlismas, yes. I've only had 1 day of that. I thought her name was Bays up until like 2 days ago. All right, 3rd fight from the top, Jamal Hill versus Jimmy Crute. There's not much you could say about this fight aside from praise Jamal Hill for getting a big win with his hands. Like I said, there was I don't even remember what happened in the fight after the first knockdown, but he was knocked half dead and then he was knocked dead. Jimmy Crute, I feel like a lot we learned from this fight, if we learned anything, was about his chin. which not that I'm completely writing it off, because I know Jamal Hill's a great striker, but I have my doubts about his chin and his durability overall, fragility. So that's what I took away from this fight. But yeah, Jamal Hill got a huge win with his hands. I did want to see Jamal Hill tested on the ground, especially against Jimmy Crute. He's the guy that tapped the guy who tapped him, Paul Craig. And I really wanted to see how he would handle that, a more, mixed fight against a guy like Jimmy Crute. But instead, we learned how Jimmy Crute would handle a stand-up fight against Jamal Hill for 40 seconds. So, great victory. This guy, I'm really high on Jamal Hill. I think he's a few wins away from anything significant, but he's going to be fighting a top 10 fighter next. If not next, he'll be fighting for a top 10 spot next. He's, well, that doesn't make any sense, but you know what I mean. He's up there. He was already in the top 15, I think, and to get a first round victory over Jimmy Crute, sensational like that in 40 seconds, he's one of the top prospects in the division. All right, next up, Clay Guida versus Leonardo Santos. God damn, this was my fight of the night, really. Better than any of them. I forgot about this. As a fight, this was the fight of the night. Clay Guida, look, I was screaming at the ref, stop the fight. And half the reasons because I bet on the under, which, whatever. But I was really, really scared for Clay Guida. He was rocked. He was rocked badly, and then after he was rocked, he was swarmed, and he was just overwhelmed, and then knocked down again. I thought he was knocked out with a knee at some point, and it looks so bad, but he is just a machine. And like they always say, if you're in great shape, then you'll recover faster, more quickly, and that's so true about Clay Guida. You just know this guy's in tip-top shape. He's got that wrestling cardio, and even as a striker on the feet, he bounces around like all day long. This guy is I don't know why I said that like a Long Island fucking whatever. All day long, Long Island. Clay Guida is a problem for anybody who doesn't have a great gas tank, or who might have a questionable gas tank, which there's not too much you could say about Leonardo Santos, but that's one thing you could say about him. It doesn't help that he's 40 years old, although Clay Guida is too. I think Santos is a little older, but Clay Guida has a million miles on the odometer, whereas Leonardo Santos doesn't. He fights, every 7 years, comes out like the fucking locust. He descends from the clouds to grace us with his presence. But this was the end of his career, largely speaking, Leonardo Santos. Meaning he might have another fight left in him, or a few fights, but he's not going upward. It's over for him, which sucks. Clay Guida, it's tough to say he's not going up or whatever. This is it for him. This isn't it for him, but he's one of those guys in that Jim Miller class, where he's a UFC legend, I want to say. He's given us many great wars, and I want to say throughout his career, in the UFC anyway, this was his best win. Maybe his best win is over Josh Thompson outside the UFC or whatever, but this was my favorite victory of his. He's had better fights, which not too many of them. Diego Sanchez and Roger Huerta, but he was on the losing end of those fights. This was his moment, and he really seized the day. He submitted. I don't even know how I didn't get to that. He submitted Leonardo Santos. Largely, I didn't get to that because I have it in my head that, it was just a victory on the cardio front. But he submitted him, which guys like Leonardo Santos have that endless jiu-jitsu, or, it's thought to be endless, where you're not going to submit him. You can knock him half dead and get on top of him, and that guy's clocked too many hours with guys on his neck, guys on his arm. It won't work on him. But it worked on him. Clay got him that tired, and Clay has that wrestling and grappling pressure It's not like he hasn't been doing jiu-jitsu for 20 years. He's not some medalist, gold medalist or anything, but he's a competent grappler, and he's a competent wrestler, and he's a competent MMA fighter. And man, just I like to make predictions with 6 different outcomes, broadly speaking, and a lot of it's just so I can organize my bets in my head or whatever. But each fighter has 3 options. There are 3 paths to victory, broadly speaking. TKO, KO, which, whatever, that could be considered from the ground, which is more attributable to jiu-jitsu. But still, it's a TKO, KO, decision, and submission. So there's 6 possible outcomes for the fight, and then the fucking draw and whatever, and yada yada. The majority horse shit. But Clay Guida via submission was my last. It was number 6 when I broke that fight down. It's not going to happen. It could happen if he knocked him dead, but it's not going to happen. And it happened. And it happened in front of his family, which was one of my favorite moments of the night. Clay Guida, probably better than the fight itself, given all the props to his parents who were there celebrating their 40th anniversary, maybe 45th. Something big. I don't think they're breaking up soon. But, and praising his best friend who got him into wrestling, and of course his brother. He went out of his way to give his brother a shout out, which is really cool. That's Jason Guida. But, who went light on the slaps, by the way. Slapping him in the face before he gets into the cage, which I'm glad they went light on the slaps. We get it, you're the intense Guida brothers, but man, that guy's got 50 pounds on him, hitting him. You could hit him with I almost knocked myself out. Hit him with the wrong spot of the hand, and that's going to suck. So, just an overall, the perfect night for Clay Guida. And he's had a lot of great nights, but this one was perfect, and the highlight of his UFC career, I want to say. All right, next up we go to Chris Curtis versus Brendan Allen. 4 first names in 2 names. All right, not such an interesting stat. I'm sure that's not going to keep you coming for these videos, but whatever. Let's roll on here. It was not a similar fight to his fight, Brendan Allen's fight with Sean Strickland, but it was Brendan Allen, again, his chin succumbing in round 2, which, could be a chin, could be a cardio thing, I don't know. But Brendan Allen, he's looked really good in a lot of UFC fights, but he's looked similar in both of his losses, his last 2 fights. Now, these guys trained together. Of course, Sean Strickland, the last guy to beat him, was in Chris Curtis's corner. And Chris Curtis, man, this guy he's surging. He's been surging since before he came to the UFC. He had those losses in the PFL, and then I think he really turned a corner. I'm not saying, he's better than Ray Cooper now or whatever, but I'm saying he turned a corner. This guy, it's cool to see fighters hit that stride where they're just they're taming their opponents and getting finishes within the fight. That's what he does. He's got a lot of late finishes. 3rd round, 2nd round here was, I consider that a late finish. Anything but the 1st round is where you're, taking your opponent apart or even taking what he has and then capitalizing on a moment, putting him away. It's late finishes speak to a veteran's experience. And that's what I saw with Chris Curtis. Chris Curtis in both of his fights, even though he got the 1st round finish in the first fight against Phil Hawes. But those are 2 top fighters, not I can't call them top fighters, but they're top prospects and bona fide UFC fighters, both Phil Hawes and Brendan Allen. They've both beaten guys, really good guys in the UFC, and they're bona fide UFC fighters. And Chris Curtis came in. This guy retired twice 2 years ago, twice in one night, actually, and suffered 2 losses. And man, he belongs here, and he's a welcome addition to the UFC. He's got a great personality too. It's cool when you see a guy that, anytime you hear him talk, he's euphoric and revved up with adrenaline anyway. But he's a welcome addition to the roster. Brendan Allen, well, I don't want to say he's not going anywhere, not now, but 2 losses like that break him. I think he considered himself to be the best middleweight on the planet, and I think now he's going to be thinking otherwise. He's going to have to look, look to the gym, and he's going to have to really work on some things. I'm no expert, but that guy, he's got to protect himself, and he's got to get in better shape, perhaps, and which, again, I'm not sure if that's even true, but he's got to do something. And that guy's not the best fighter in the world, but he's a guy that could beat just about anybody, that he's faced. He could have beaten Strickland, could have beaten Curtis, and he's he's got a high ceiling. I'm not sure what it is, but right now he's not the next John Jones or whatever he had in his head. He was talking on the way into this fight saying that he couldn't wait to get to Sean Strickland, that he would take Sean Strickland over the championship because he has to right that wrong. I don't know. I imagine him being a significant underdog against Sean Strickland. So he's got to do some work. Excuse me. Yeah, this show is sponsored by Gatorade. All right. Alex Morono versus Mickey Gall. Morono outclassed him, but Mickey Gall showed again he does belong in the UFC. He's a legitimate UFC fighter. I think a lot of people will look at his record and say, this guy doesn't belong, but that's a UFC record, essentially, aside from one fight. And he's legit. And he's shown, I think, in losses that he's legitimate. Guys that are inexperienced and fighting these experienced fighters and losing to them, especially losing third rounds, he's shown that he can take it. He's been the nail against more seasoned fighters, and he's able to hang in there. Mickey Gall, and I think he's better on the feet than people give him credit for, but he was outgunned by Alex Morono. Morono is one of the least athletic looking guys, but he's a natural fighter, and he makes it work for him. He's scrappy, he's gritty, and he's a very sound. I can't say very sound defensively. He's been swarmed by Chaos Williams, who essentially Brett Rogers him, but he's always got his hands up. He's always in and out. He's a very conscious fighter, and he was zoned in, and he didn't have one. There wasn't one moment where I thought Mickey Gall's taking over this fight or Mickey Gall's winning this fight. He ate a few straight punches in the second round and whatever, but essentially Mickey Gall was outclassed here. So great win for Alex Morono, who's now on, I think, his three-fight winning streak in the UFC, which is, a nice feather in his cap. And he's surging too. I don't know where he goes from here, but he's not going anywhere if he doesn't want to. This guy's got a UFC career. I know he's a coach, and it seems like maybe he's got one foot in the water, or whatever the expression is, and one foot out. But he's a good UFC fighter, that's for sure. And the guys that aren't good don't go on 3-fight winning streaks. And guys that don't do that twice, that aren't good fighters. So he's a very good fighter, and while I don't see him winning the championship, I don't see him doing well with Kamaru Usman. Hey, prove me wrong, and that's the kind of guy that will prove you wrong. So, very good night for Alex Morono. Next up, we're going to Dusko Todorovic versus Maki Pitolo. This was basic dominance, round 1, mount TKO, a fight straight out of the 90s, and Dusko Todorovic needed a fight like that. He needed a big win. And while I can't say he's got the highest ceiling or whatever, he defied my expectations. I was picking Maki Pitolo to win. And Maki, he's just a fighter with a lot of holes. He's got great offense but poor defense. And man, that guy, that's it for him in the UFC. You won't see him anymore. You know, like the Godfather. You won't see him no more. You won't see him anymore. He's not a UFC caliber fighter, and neither was Charles Byrd. But it takes a fight like this to admit that, and that's what we admit now. He'll be cut from the UFC. He's still one of the most exciting fighters, but he's a regional guy, journeyman, and sucks. Maybe he can work his way back. I don't know, but he's got a good amount of losses now. A lot of them are finishes, so might be it for him. Dusko, he's young, he's hungry, he's good, and he's tougher than I gave him credit for after the loss to Soriano. But he, he didn't. This saved his UFC career, and that's pretty much it. I think if he lost this fight, he was out of the UFC. That would have been 3 consecutive losses, with the third being to Maki Pitolo, who would have had a little higher stock after defeating Dusko, but still, the UFC knew he wasn't the best. So, Dusko Todorovic saved his UFC career. That was the story of that fight. All right, next up, Kape versus Zhumagulov. That's what it was. Whatever. Fucking with it. But Kape was he had a lot of hype coming into the UFC, being the rising champion, taking out Kai Asakura, and I want to say he's established himself as a good UFC fighter, even with the losses. The loss to Nicolau, I don't know, that was razor thin. In fact, I thought Kape won the fight. I bet on Nicolau. And I thought, my money's gone. But there's a chance with some incompetence. And there was enough. Go figure. But still, the guy, he's 2-2 now, I think, in the UFC. Oh, no. Yeah, I think he's 2-2 in the UFC. And he's got 2 great finishes. And this was a better finish than it is a victory. Meaning, Zhalgas, he's tough. He's tough to put away, and I don't see too many guys putting him away in the division. But Kape's got that next level power. I think he's got a really high ceiling. I want to see him. I can't say he's going to get revenge against either guy that beat him, but I'd like to see him fight someone. I'd like to see him fight either one of those guys or someone at their level. This guy needs a big fight next, and he's also a guy where even despite the 2 losses, he's not far away from a title shot if he gets the right amount of victories, the right matchups, I should say. All right, Barberena versus Darian Weeks. This was a Brian Barberena fight, meaning it was a fucking war, and there was a lot of grit shown. Grit on both sides. I think Darian Weeks is a bona fide MMA fighter, definitely on the UFC level. Not that he'll be kept around if he loses another fight, I think, but he's 5-0 or 5-1 now. But he had an extensive amateur record, and the guy was a really good amateur fighter. And still to this day, he's never been finished. And to fight a guy and lose to a guy like Brian Barberena like that, he should have been finished. Guys that are 5-0 lose to guys like Barberena. They get finished by them when they lose to him too. But Barberena wasn't able to put him away, and in fact, he lost a round. Darian Weeks took round 2 from him, and round 1 was pretty close. It was a close fight. I just knew at the end, Barberena won round 3 by enough where you thought, okay, I don't know who won round 1, but the guy that got the better of the other guy in this fight was Barberena. So Barberena got the just decision. I'm glad they gave him round 1 too, because it was, a well-fought fight from Brian Barberena. He's not the most technical guy. He can lose. He's going to lose aspects of any fight to just about any different fighter, that's worthy of stepping in there in the first place. Brian Barberena, not that he'll drop around, but he's not going to be better everywhere. And he's Darian Weeks. He's a great athlete, and he showed a lot of tenacity and toughness just to hang in there and still try with Brian Barberena, and especially in round 3, that's where the toughness came into play. This guy, he didn't go down, and he was tired. I thought he might have gone down 2 or 3 minutes into the fight, into the round, but he kept his cool. He kept fighting, and he made a pretty cool debut, I thought. He's 0-1 in the UFC. As a guy that was 5-0, he did a favor here by stepping up, so he's in the good graces of the UFC. I don't think they'll do him dirty, so to speak, but I do think he's still a young fighter, and he's got some things to learn, but he's a capable UFC fighter. I think this guy, I don't know who he'll match. He can be matched up against anybody in the division, so it's not even fair to speculate, but I think this guy, if he's fighting anybody that's entry level, he can beat him. And I do think he'll stick around on this run in the UFC. So, good fight overall. Next up, Cheyenne Vlismas versus Mallory Martin. This was a great fight. A lot of great striking in this fight. Excuse me. That was an itch more than anything else. But Cheyenne Vlismas, hope I'm saying that right, Vlismas, she didn't kick Mallory Martin's ass, but I thought she got the better of her the whole way through. Mallory Martin was in there, though. I mean, she showed, despite losing, and maybe even losing all the rounds and whatever, maybe every minute of the fight, she was on her level. That was a very competitive fight the whole way through. I thought Mallory Martin proved that she's one of those fighters that just had a rough go of things. A lot of tough fighters that she fought early on in her career, and now she stands at a 7-5. But she's a bona fide UFC fighter at 7-5. I want to see her be given another opportunity, despite the losses she's suffered. To Jandaroba and whoever, Polyana Viana. But she, she showed a lot of heart, grit, and striking, and cardio. She showed a lot of great traits, went tooth and nail, and I thought her striking also looked really good, too. Cheyenne Vlismas, I thought, looked better. She looks like a really good striker out there. Of course, I have it in my head that somebody could just put her in the schoolyard headlock and take her down. But, even that, it's that memory might be erased in not long at all. Another few fights. And maybe she'll even get that one back. Who knows? But she's a good fighter. She's a lot of fun to watch, especially after the last one, the knockout, and now this fight. She's, they might put her on the main card next on a fight night. That's certainly not on a pay-per-view yet, but she's and let's face it, she's attractive, which whatever doesn't hurt. All right, next up, William Knight defeats Alonzo Menifield. This was about what I expected. I expected Menifield to win the decision, and I don't know, feels like everybody thought Menifield won the decision, but William Knight hung in there. He really took, first of all, I thought he stole round one with that opportunity he took to mount Alonzo Menifield. I think it was off a take. Oh, no, did he rock him? I think he rocked him. Yeah, he rocked him, but also he had a nice takedown into mount too. This guy is explosive, and he's got deceptively good cardio. Now, a lot of guys will dismiss this fight as they were two muscled up, sloppy fighters, and it was a real, just a slugfest, but not even really a slugfest, but a sloppy fight, sluggish, and slugfest broke out, little pockets of slugfest. So these guys just look like guys that will be exposed, but they belong in the UFC. Strength and power and explosiveness with toughness and whatever the fuck. If that's enough to get you there, that's enough to get you there. These guys are problems for other fighters. Menifield took out Ed Herman via decision. Menifield, they both took out Fabio Charant. Fabio? I don't know. Charant, anyway, whatever the fuck. But they both belong in the UFC. You know, they've got knockout power. That, especially when they're fresh, you give these guys 10 fights against anybody, or any 10 fighters, they're both coming away with 3 knockout victories, if not 8, depending on the level of opponents. But they also have toughness. And look, it may look like, oh, that guy's gassed. I could be out wrestling him right now. No, you couldn't. These guys are strong and they train hard, and they're both, I can't say they're well-rounded or whatever, but they both gave each other problems, or they've both given fighters problems in different areas. William Knight is no submission artist, but he was quick to take the back in round 1 there, which looked pretty cool. And he also, he hasn't been tapped. That's a guy where whatever. I expected that coming into this fight. Maybe Menifield will take over and get a submission in round 2 or something. But these guys didn't fade, and it was a really close fight. Again, I thought Menifield won going into it, but I was hoping Knight got the decision, and I think all 3 judges gave it to Knight. I'm pretty sure it was unanimous. I didn't write anything down, but still, these guys, say what you will about them, and I feel like a lot of times maybe the muscle can work against them, or their image as a fighter. Maybe not their image, but their reputation. These guys have they're not guys that are going to fall apart. Neither one of them fell apart against the other in round 3, round 2. So not bad. Again, these I don't know the ceiling. I know William Knight's like 60 years old already, but welcome to the UFC. All right, Claudio Puelles versus Chris Gruetzmacher. This was fucking awesome. It was cool seeing a knee bar finish. And this guy Puelles, he has 2 now in the UFC, which is a record. Nobody's got 2 knee bar finishes. I don't even know how many knee bars there are in total. I'm pretty sure there's under 20. And might even be under 10 for all I know. Probably not that, though. But still, there's not too many of them, and he's got 2, and both of them are in round 3. And in the first fight that he got the knee bar against fucking Silva, Felipe Silva, I think, he was getting his ass kicked. Almost knocked out, almost knocked dead. Fight should have been stopped for 10 minutes at that point. And instead, he gets a knee bar in the 3rd round out of nowhere. And this wasn't quite the same. He had gone for a leg before, and he was working on that leg for a minute or so before that fight, before that finish. But he got it, and he just caught the right angle on that leg, straightened it out, put his hips into that knee, and that was that. It's really cool seeing a knee bar. I remember, there's a lot of fans that are probably watching the MMA now, and a knee bar seems like some new move, perhaps, some new phenomenon or something. Nope, it's really old school, and it used to be a thing. It used to be a staple of MMA, and it's cool to see him brought back. So, and a lot of people are heel hookers nowadays, but it's cool to have a knee bar. Really cool performance. Chris Gruetzmacher, he's hot and cold. I think he's, win one, lose one for his whole career or something like that. But he's not going anywhere, I don't think. I don't think he's going to the top of the division or anything, don't get me wrong. But I'm saying I don't think he's going to be cut from the UFC. Although they may not value him much as a commodity. He's old, and he's, might be a good test for young fighters and whatever, the old grizzled veteran. But he's not going to be a future contender anytime soon. All right, and the first fight of the night, the last one that I will be talking about here, was Vincent Morales taking on Louis Smolka. I'm a Smolka fan, been a Smolka fan for a long time now, and this was tough to watch. It was not that it was like, it was just tough to watch his chin getting cracked. He is a guy who's been defeated via submission before to really good submission artists, but only the best, really. Brandon Moreno, Matt Schnell, and Schnell. and Casey Kenny guillotined him. But he's one of those guys that I will never stop rooting for because of the way he fights. And I thought he was going to win this fight by overwhelming Morales and getting a late finish from the full mount. Smolka's a guy who just, once your cardio drops a little bit, he's on you. Mount, back mount, takedown, mount. And he doesn't have the strongest game, the strongest mount in the world. You can buck him off and whatever, but he doesn't stop. He just doesn't stop. And this was the first time his chin was cracked. He's got a good amount of losses, 7 or 8, and his chin has never been cracked. And this time it was like essentially a one-punch knockout. He was knocked out with that one punch. I think it caught him behind the ear, but still, it was a short, hard punch, and that's good enough. Morales is, I don't want to say he's the most promising prospect, but this was by far his greatest victory, best moment in his UFC career, and there's not much you could say aside from it. Sucks watching the chin go. I don't know if it was an anomaly or a sign to things to come with Louis Smolka. You might see him getting knocked out more and more, but either way, Morales. Hopefully, Morales, you find him getting knockouts more and more, and that's his thing. So, all right, that was my breakdown of the event. If I had to give it a rating, let me look at what I saw here. It was really good. This event was a really good card for a fight night. As a fight night, I feel like this was an 8 out of 10. It's not on the level of a pay-per-view. Even a shitty pay-per-view is just that much more important with the implications. Like next week's card, UFC 269. It's going to be tough for this event to be better than that, but this event at least gave itself a shot. This one delivered. Oh, the bonuses, I think, went to Vlismas and Martin won the fight of the night. And who the hell won the bonuses? I think Curtis, Guida, Jamal Hill, and Fiziev. So, yeah, overall, great event. If you were a UFC fan, then I'm sure you enjoyed this one. It was much better than the last event, which was utter dog shit. And next week, December 10th, 2021. Is it the 10th? I don't even know. No, it might be the 11th. The 11th, and last night was the 4th. I don't know. Whatever. You look it up. Anyway, yeah, so next week I'm going to be talking about UFC 269. You can count on me to release a video for you on Wednesday. Wednesday night, I'm going to drop another video with my predictions and breakdown of the fights. And then Sunday morning, I'll be back in my bathrobe to digest the whole thing. All right? Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you guys on Wednesday.